Hello and welcome to another day of a sutta day. We're returning to the Jataka tales, and this is still going on the stories of the Buddha's former births, book 1 and Kanipata. This will be the fourth one, the tale of the little merchant. Let me go back and make sure. The shorter tale of the financier, actually. And this translation, once again, is by Robert Chalmers. Perhaps the name before Cullaka-Setthi Jātaka. Let's begin. With humblest start, this story was told by the master about the elder named Little Wayman, while in Jivaka's mango grove near Rajgir. And here, an account of Little Wayman's birth must be given. Tradition tells us that the daughter of a rich merchant's family in Rajgir actually stooped to intimacy with a slave. Becoming alarmed lest her misconduct should get known, she said to the slave, "We can't live on here, for if my mother and father come to know of this sin of ours, they will tear us limb from limb. Let us go and live afar off." So, with their belongings in their hand, they stole together out by the hardly open door and fled away. They cared not whether to find a shelter beyond the ken of her family. Then they went and lived together in a certain place, with the result that she conceived. And when her full time was nearly come, she told her husband and said, "If I am taken in labor away from kith and kin, that will be trouble to both of us, so let us go home." First he agreed to start today, and then he put it off until the morrow. And so he let the day slip by till she thought to herself, "This fool is so conscious of his great offense that he dares not go. One's parents are one's best friends, so whether he goes or stays, I must go." So when we went out, she put all of her household matters in order and set off home, telling her next-door neighbor where she was going. Returning home and not finding his wife, but discovering from the neighbors that she had started off home, he hurried after her and came up with her on the road. And there she was taken in labor. "What's this, my dear?" said he. "I have given birth to a son, my husband," said she. Accordingly, as the very thing had now happened, which was the only reason for the journey, they both agreed that it was no good going on now, and so turned back again. And as their child had been born by the way, they called him Wayman. Not long after, she became with child again, and everything fell out as before. And as the second child was too born on the way, they called him Wayman too, distinguishing the elder as Great Wayman and the younger as Little Wayman. Then, with both their children, they again went back to their own home. Now, as they were living there, their way child heard other boys talking of their uncles and grandfathers and grandmothers, so he asked his mother whether he hadn't got relations like the other boys. "Oh, yes, my dear," said his mother, "but they do not live here. Your grandfather is a wealthy merchant in the city of Rajgir, and you have plenty of relatives there." "Why don't we go there, mother?" She told the boy the reasons why they stayed away, but as the children kept on speaking about these relations, she said to her husband, "The children are always plaguing me. Are my parents going to eat us at sight? Come, let us show the children their grandfather's family." "Well, I don't mind taking them there, but I really could not face your parents. All right, so long as some way or other the children come to see their grandfather's family," she said. So these two took their children, and coming in due course to Rajgir, put up in a public rest house by the city gate. Then, taking with them the two children, the woman caused their coming to be made known to her parents. The later, on hearing the message, returned the answer, "True." It is strange to be without children unless one has renounced the world in quest of arhantship. Still so great is the guilt of the pair towards us that they may not stand in our sight. Here is a sum of money for them. Let them take this and retire to live where they will. But the children they may send here. Then the merchant's daughter took the money, so sent her, and dispatched the children by messengers. So the children grew up in their grandfather's home. Little Wayman, being of tender years, while great Wayman used to go with his grandfather to hear the Buddha preach the truth. And by constant hearing of the truth from the master's own lips, the lad's heart yearned to renounce the world for the life of a brother. With your permission, said he to his grandfather, I should like to join the brotherhood. What do I hear? Cried the old man. Why, it would give me greater joy to see you join the order than to see the whole world join. Become a brother if you feel able. And he took him to the master. Well, merchant, said the master, have you brought your boy with you? Yes, sir, this is my grandson who wishes to join your brotherhood. Then the master sent for a mendicant, and told him to admit the lad to the order. And the mendicant replied the formula of the perishable body and admitted the lad as a novice. When the latter had learned by heart many words of the Buddha and was old enough, he was admitted a full brother. He now gave himself up to earnest thought till he won arhantship, and as he passed his days in the enjoyment of insight and the past, he thought whether he could not impart the like happiness to little Wayman. So he went to his grandfather, the merchant, and said, Great merchant, with your consent I will admit little Wayman to the order. Pray do so, reverend sir, was the reply. Then the elder admitted the little lad Wayman and established him in the 10 Commandments. But little Wayman proved a dullard. With 4 months' study, he failed to get by heart this single stanza. Lo, like a fragrant lotus at the dawn of day, full blown with virgin wealth of scent, behold the Buddha's glories shining forth, as in the vaulted heavens beam the sun. For we are told in the Buddhahood of Kassapa, this little Wayman, having himself attained to great knowledge as a brother, laughed to scorn a dull brother who was learning a passage by heart. His scorn so confused his butt that the latter could not learn or recite the passage, and now, in consequence, on joining the brotherhood, he himself proved a dullard. Each new line he learned drove the last out of his memory, and 4 months slipped away while he was struggling with this single stanza. Said his elder brother to him, Wayman, you are not equal to receiving this doctrine, and 4 whole months you have been unable to learn a single stanza. How, then, can you hope to crown your vocation with supreme success? Leave the monastery. But, thoughtless, expelled by his brother, little Wayman was so attached to the Buddha's creed that he did not want to become a layman. Now, at that time, great Wayman was acting as steward in Jataka Kamarubacha, going to his mango grove with a large present of perfumes and flowers for the master, had presented his offering and listened to a discourse. Then rising from his seat and bowing to the Buddha, he went up to great Wayman and asked, How many brethren are there, revered sir, with the master? Just 500, sir. Will you bring the 500 brethren with the Buddha at their head to take their meal at my house tomorrow? They disciple, one of them named Little Wayman, is a dullard and makes no progress in the faith. Said the elder, I accept the invitation for everyone but him. Hearing this, little Wayman thought to himself, in accepting the invitation for all these brethren, the elder carefully accepts so as to exclude me. This proves that my brother's affection for me is dead. What have I to do with this proof? What have I to do with this proofs? I will become a layman and live in the exercise of charity and other good works of a lay character. And on the morrow, early he went forth, a vow to become a layman again. Now, at the first break of day, as he was surveying the world, the master became aware of this, and going forth even earlier than little Wayman, he paced to and fro by the porch on little Wayman's road. As the latter came out of the house, he observed the master, and with a salutation went up to him. Whither away at this hour, little Wayman? Said master. My brother has expelled me from the order, sir, and I am going to wander forth. Little Wayman, as it was under me that you took the vows, why did you not, when expelled by your brother, come to me? Can't what have you to do with a layman's life? You shall stop with me. So saying, he took little Wayman and seated him at the door of his own perfume chamber. Then giving him a perfectly clean cloth, which he had supernaturally created, the master said, face towards the east, and as you handle this cloth, repeat these words: removal of impurity, removal of impurity. Then at the time appointed, the master, attended by the brotherhood, went to Javaka's house and sat down on a seat set for him. Now, little Wayman, with his gaze fixed on the sun, sat handling the cloth and repeating the words, removal of impurity, removal of impurity. And as he kept handling the piece of cloth, it grew soiled. Then he thought, just now this piece of cloth was quite clean, but my personality has destroyed its original state and made it dirty. Impermanent indeed are all compound things. And even as he realized death and decay, he won the Arhant's illumination. Knowing that little Wayman's mind had won illumination, the master sent forth an apparition and, in the semblance of himself, appeared before him, as if seated in front of him, and saying, heed it not, little Wayman, that this mere piece of cloth has become dirty and stained with impurity. Within thee are the impurities of lust and other evil things. Remove them, and the apparition uttered this stanza. Impurity in lust consists not dirt. In lust we term the real impurity. Yes, brethren, whoso derives it from his breast, he lives the gospel of the purified. Impurity and wrath consist not dirt, and wrath we term the real impurity. Yes, brethren, whoso derives it from his breast, he lives the gospel of the purified. Delusion is impurity, not dirt. We term delusion real impurity. Yes, brethren, who derives it from his breast, he lives the gospel of the purified. At the close of the stanzas, little Wayman attained arahantship with the 4 branches of knowledge, whereby he straightway came to have knowledge of all the sacred texts. Tradition has it that, in ages past, when he was a king and was making a solemn procession around the city, he wiped the sweat from his brow with a spotless cloth which he was wearing, and the cloth was stained. Thought he, is this body of mine, which has destroyed the original purity and whiteness of this cloth, and dirtied it, impermanent indeed, are all composite things. Thus he grasped the idea of impermanence, and hence it came to pass that it was the removal of impurity which worked his salvation. Meantime, Jivaka Kamrahacha offered the water of donation, but the master put his hand over the vessel, saying, are there no brethren, Jivaka, in the monastery? Sneered great Wayman, there are no brethren there, revered sir. Oh, yes, there are, Jivaka, said the master. Hi there, said Jivaka to a servant. Just you go and see whether or not there are any brethren in the monastery. At that moment, little Wayman, conscious as he was that his brother was declaring there were no brethren in the monastery, determined to shew him there was, show him there were. It says shoot. And so filled the whole mango grove with nothing but brothers. Some were making robes, others dyeing, while others again were repeating the sacred text. Each of 1,000 brethren he made unlike all the others. Finding this host of brethren in a monastery, the man returned and said that the whole mango grove was full of brethren. But as regards the elder up in the monastery, Raymond 1,000-fold self-multiplied, set on till bidden in that pleasant grove. Now go back, said the master to the man, and say, the master sends for him, whose name is little Wayman. But when the man went and delivered this message, 1,000 mouths answered, I am little Wayman, I am little Wayman. Back came the man with the report. They all say they are little Wayman, revered sir. Now go back, said the master, and take by the hand the first of them who says he is little Wayman, and the others will all vanish. The man did as he was bidden, and straightway the 1,000 brethren vanished from sight. The elder came back with the man. When the meal was over, master said, Jataka, take little Wayman's bowl. He will return, thanks. Jataka did so. Then, like a young lion roaring defiance, the elder arranged the whole of the sacred text through in his address of thanks. Lastly, the master rose from his seat and attended by the order returned to the monastery. And there, after the assignment of tasks by the brotherhood, he rose from his seat and standing in the doorway of his perfume chamber delivered a Buddha discourse to the brotherhood, ending with a theme which he gave out for meditation, and dismissed the brotherhood. He retired into his perfume chamber and lay down lion-like on his right side to rest. And even the orange-robed brethren assembled together from all sides in the hall of truth and sang the master's praise, even as though they were spreading a curtain of orange cloth round him as they sat. Brethren, it was said, great Wayman failed to recognize the bent of little Wayman and expelled him from the monastery as a dullard, who could not even learn a single stanza in 4 whole months. But the all-knowing Buddha, by his supremacy in the truth, bestowed on him arhatship with all its supernatural knowledge, even while a single meal was in progress. And by that knowledge he grasped the whole of the sacred text. Oh, how great is the Buddha's power! Now the Blessed One, knowing full well that talk was going on in the hall of truth, thought it meet to go there, so rising from his Buddha couch, he donned his 2 orange undercloths, girded himself as with lightning, arrayed himself in his orange-colored robe, the ample robe of a Buddha, and came forth to the hall of truth. With the infinite grace of a Buddha, moving with the royal gait of an elephant in the plenitude of his vigor, ascending the glorious Buddha throne set in the midst of the resplendent hall, he seated himself upon the middle of the throne, emitting those 6 colored rays which mark a Buddha, like the newly arisen sun. And from the peaks of the Yamdhara mountains, he illuminated the depths of the ocean. Immediately, the all-knowing one came into the hall. The brotherhood broke off their talk and were silent, gazing round on the company with gentle, loving kindness. The master thought within himself, this company is perfect. Not a man is guilty of moving hand or foot improperly. Not a sound, not a cough or a sneeze is to be heard. In their reverence and awe of the majesty and glory of the Buddha, not a man who dare speak before I did, even if I sat here in silence all my life long. But it was my part to begin, and I will open the conversation. Then, in his sweet divine tones, he addressed the brethren and said, "What, pray, is the theme of this conclave, and what was the talk which was broken off?" "Sir," said they, "it was no profitless theme, but your own praise that we were telling here in the conclave." And when they had told him word for word what they had been saying, the master said, "Brethren, through me, little Wayman has just now risen to great things in the faith. In time past, it was to great things in the way of wealth that he rose, but equally through me." The brethren asked the master to explain this, and the Blessed One made clear in those words a thing which succeeding existences had hidden from them. Once on a time, when Brahmadatta was reigning in Benares, in Kasi, the Bodhisattva was born into the treasurer's family, and growing up was made treasurer, being called Treasurer Little. A wise and clever man was he, with a keen eye for sights and omens. One day, on his way to wait upon the king, he came on a dead mouse, laying on the road, and taking note of the position of the stars at that moment, he said, "Any decent young fellow, with his wits about him, has only to pick up that mouse, and he might start a business and keep a wife." His words were overheard by a young man of good family, but reduced circumstances, who said to himself, "That's a man who always has a good that's a man who has always got a reason for what he says," and accordingly he picked up the mouse, which he sold for a farthing at a tavern for their cat. With the farthing he got molasses and took drinking water and a water pot, coming on flower gatherers returning from the forest. He gave each a tiny quantity of the molasses and ladled the water out to them. Each of them gave him a handful of flowers, with the proceeds of which next day he came back again to the flower grounds, provided with more molasses and a pot of water. That day the flower gatherers, before they went, gave him flowering plants with half the flowers left on them, and thus in a little while he obtained 8 pennies. Later, one rainy and windy day, the wind blew down a quantity of rotten branches and boughs and leaves in the king's pleance. I don't know that word. And the gardener did not see how to clear them away. Then up came the young man with an offer to remove the lot, if the wood and leaves might be his. The gardener closed with the offer on the spot, and thus apt people of Treasurer Little repaired to the children's playground in a very little while, had got them by bribes of molasses to collect every stick and leaf in the palace into a heap at the entrance to the pleasance. Just then the king's potter was on the lookout for fuel to fire bowls for the palace, and coming on this heap, took the lot off his hands. The sale of this wood brought in 16 pennies to this people of Treasure Little, as well as 5 bowls and other vessels. Having now 24 pennies in all, a plan occurred to him. He went to the vicinity of the city gate with a jar full of water and supplied 500 mowers with water to drink. Said they, "You've done us a good turn, friend. What can we do for you?" "Oh, I'll tell you when I want your aid," said he, and as he went about, he struck up an intimacy with the land trader and sea trader. Said the farmer to him, "Tomorrow there will come to town a horse dealer with 500 horses to sell." On hearing this piece of news, he said to the mowers, "I want each of you today to give me a bundle of grass, and not to sell your own grass till mine is sold." "Certainly," said they, and delivered the 500 bundles of grass at his house. Unable to get grass for his horses elsewhere, the dealer purchased our friend's grass for 1,000 pieces. Only a few days later, his sea trading friend brought him news of the arrival of a large ship in port, and another plan struck him. He hired for 8 pence a well-appointed carriage, which plied for hire by the hour, and went in great style down to the port. Having bought the ship on credit, deposited his signet ring as security, he had a pavilion pitched hard by, and said to his people as he took the seat inside, when merchants are being shewn in, let them be passed on by 3 successive ushers into my presence. Hearing that a ship had arrived in port, about 100 merchants came down to buy the cargo, only to be told that they could not have it, as a great merchant had already made a payment on the amount. So away they all went to the young men, and the footmen duly announced them by 3 successive ushers, as had been arranged beforehand. Each man of the 100 severely gave him 1,000 pieces to buy a share in the ship, and then a further 1,000 each to buy him out altogether. So it was this 200,000 pieces that the people of Treasurer Little returned to Benares. Actuated by a desire to shew his gratitude, he went with 100,000 pieces to call on Treasurer Little. "How did you come by all this wealth?" asked Treasurer. "In 4 short months, simply by following your advice," replied the young man, as he told the whole story, starting with the dead mouse. So thought Lord High Treasurer Little on hearing this, "I must see that a young fellow of these parts does not fall into anybody else's hands." So he married him to his own grown-up daughter, and settled all the family estates on the young man. And at the treasurer's death, he became treasurer in that city, and the bodhisattva passed away to fare according to his just deserts. It's a very confusing story in this translation. I need to find another translation. His lesson ended. The Supreme Buddha, the all-knowing one himself, repeated this stanza. With humble start and trifling capital, a shrewd and able man will rise to wealth, and is as his breath can nurse a tiny flame. Also, the Blessed One said, "It is through me, brethren, that little Wayman has just now risen to great things in this faith, as in times past, to grow great things in the way of wealth." His lesson thus finished, the master made the connection between the 2 stories he had told and identified the birth of these concluding words. Little Wayman was in those days the pupil of Treasurer Little, and I myself, Lord High Treasurer Little. Thank you, Robert Chalmers, for this translation, and may everyone forever do well.